thanks for joining me here today.
Thanks, Michael. It's great to be here.
We really appreciate you coming down and talking. And you and I have known each other and worked together for a lot of years in our respective practices, and so thought it would be worthwhile to share some of that with people that might not be so familiar with what we do.
Wonderful. We love work with you guys, and like to talk a little bit more about how we engage each other.
Yeah. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself, what you do.
Sure. I'm Jim Judge. I'm the owner of ReLive Physical Therapy. We have 12 locations in the Chicago area, Northwest Indiana. We're more of a patient-centric company that actually we do a lot of one-on-one care, a little different from some of our competitors, and I feel like that's a differentiator. The other thing that we do is we have in-house providers that we have, actually people flying in from all over the country. In fact, some people come internationally to provide CEU education for our therapists. So we feel like we're very well equipped to treat patients. These catastrophic injuries that you guys are seeing and these personal injury cases, I feel like we really have all the equipment for our therapists to be able to be great providers, in addition to understanding how the documentation is. And so I call my therapists the Navy SEALs of therapy because they really are good at what they do. I'm very proud of them.
And as a personal injury lawyer, we have the opportunity to work for our clients with a lot of different physical therapy providers, and like I said, it's been a pleasure to work with you over the years.
Same, and what I like about your company is when we see it on our list, we see patients. We have providers from all over the region. Both Mike and I both work with different providers, of course. But one of the things I like to see when we see McCready laws, we know that the case is run the right way, and we know that we're going to get paid at the end of the day because it is on a lien. And we feel comfortable about the cases that we have because they've been already worked up very well and very, very thorough. All the documentation, there's no questions. My therapist and my intake folks that work for us are just like, this was great because all you have to do is do good care. That's all we have to do is do care, and the patients are taken care of.
Let's talk a little bit about that. A lot of people might not know, well, as a personal injury lawyer, I don't get paid unless we get a recovery for a client. Yeah. But what a lot of people don't understand is that that doctors and physical therapists, if they treat a patient and the lawyer doesn't make a recovery, that they typically don't get paid. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your experience with that?
Well, so far we've had good experiences. We've had a few other law firms that we weren't paid on, and it wasn't always their fault either. Sometimes it just something came up at the end. But with McCready Law, we're very comfortable with all of our cases. They settle very well. And sometimes we have great cases. We have to wait sometimes 6 months, a year and a half, depends on how the case runs. And I feel like McCready Law, they just run the cases so much better that we get paid faster. So, we are taking the long freight for this, but it's also worthwhile because we always feel like we're taking care of, our bill is taken care of very well. There are cases that happen in life that sometimes we both come up short. And some of his providers will tell us, like, this is what happened at the case, and he says, we'll get the next one. I always know this game because we work together as a team, and I think that's really important. So we've been very satisfied with how we've been treated and how the case flow has been for us.
And it's essential. So, as a personal injury lawyer, my job not only is to get a recovery for a client, but to make sure that they get the medical treatment that they're entitled to, and they get the best medical treatment, because the worst thing in the world is to be injured as the result of somebody else's negligence and just have to suffer through it. And physical therapy is a really important part of that. So tell me a little bit about how physical therapy helps people that have been injured.
Well, we like to be in early because all the studies show that early intervention for any soft tissue injury is going to be more, the long-term results will be greater. So we do have cases, unfortunately, where we're last in a few months, and those cases are become a little bit more chronic, and they're always more difficult to treat. But once we're in early conditions, I feel like we have a lot to say. And we also are a great advocate for either the attorney or the medical provider, the orthopedic or pain doctor, where we recognize certain pathologies because of their injuries, that we can get them up tracked into further diagnosis to treat them a little bit further if it is a lot more invasive in the future.
That's one of the things that I love working with you, is that you and your team do identify these things. Physical therapy is wonderful. There's a limit to what physical therapy can do in some circumstances. There's some circumstances that need to be treated by a specialist or an orthopedic surgeon. All the physical therapy in the world is not going to change, a ruptured herniated disc.
Yeah.
And there are other treatments that may be necessary. So we've always appreciated, how proactive you are. because from my perspective, you are also advocating for your patient. You want the best medical outcome, we want the best legal outcome, and we've got, both of us doing the best we can to represent our client, your patient.
I agree. My hope is that when the case runs, we'd never have to hear from McCready Law, because that means we're doing our job. If they're calling us, it's because something's not right. Either there's a compliance issue or some attendance issue, and I feel like we've really kind of answered the bell for those type of questions. And also, we get in early because we do know a lot of the providers in Chicago. So when we know there's another provider involved in the case, we have great communication between the medical providers so that we can kind of move them back into the system. So, for example, some cases maybe they're not due for ortho in 4 to 6 weeks, but we recognize something that maybe needs something a little faster, and we can fast back them back into the orthopedic practice very quickly so that they're taken care of immediately.
Something you've touched on is how important are relationships and your reputation in what we do?
Oh yeah, for us, when we touch a patient, and that changes their perspective on us, because we're very patient-centric. So those patients are not going to have 4 people coming into the office and 1 therapist. It's not a pyramid scheme. We work very hard on patient care, so the patients feel like, I call it the Willy Wonka golden ticket, where you have that hour with that therapist and you have that time. So I think that makes us a value added to the care, because they've been traumatized. They lost money. They're not working. They don't have vehicle. We have to be that anchor for them, and I feel like we provide that anchor for them while they're going through their recovery.
And add on top of that, they're in a lot of pain.
Correct.
And they can't do the things that they're used to doing, and don't understand what the treatment program will be and how it's designed to help them improve. Listen, I've been through physical therapy. It hurts. It is not something that you want to do, but with the right physical therapist, it's encouraging you, and you can do this and keep working, and you've got to do this in order to make your recovery. And if you don't, it can lead to all sorts of problems down the road.
I agree. I think the most important part, the whole phase of therapy is important, but the initial consult is the most important, because we explain and walk them through. Here's your pathology, here's your condition, here's what's going to take to be where you need to be. And we want to make sure there's a buy-in, because the compliance is so important to their recovery, and that we work with them, because patients do work, and even though they have a car accident, they do go to work, they do have a farm. We will work around their schedule. If they have to come in the evenings, we will do that for them, so they know that we're there for them. And I think when they feel that there's care going on and their empathy there, I think that makes a difference for their overall outcome, because that's part of the culture that we describe for them, and we're very happy to be part of your care that we bring. So when we see a patient from McCready, we're very happy to see them, because we know they've already been coached up on what they need to do to be better at the recovery, and we just have to take it from there.
Yeah, but keep in mind, from a lawyer's perspective, we defer to the medical providers, right? Mm-hmm. We trust the professionals, the doctors, the physical therapists, the radiologists who read the MRIs. What we want to do is make sure that our client is getting the medical attention that the medical providers are recommending, mm-hmm. And working with people that we know will provide good care for our clients is really important to us.
I agree. It takes a village sometimes, and I think the type of providers that are involved, and usually in these cases are very good for us. And so we're not at solo. We do treat. We do a lot of communication between all prospects of all the therapy providers and the doctors as well.
Yeah, I love the feedback that we get from our clients saying that. Well, a lot of our clients will know their therapist by their first name, mm-hmm. right? Oh, I went in and Jim took care of this. I mean, that must be very, very reassuring to you. And
I agree. I mean, not to go into other companies, but sometimes they name the brand as opposed to the person, and so it's very rewarding to have the individual's name, because that means that person take good care of them. And in fact, my name, I scrape my name off the walls. I don't want my name. I want them to know the therapist that are treating, not myself, because these therapists are the ones that are making the music, and I'm very happy what they do.
Likewise, with my office, every client is assigned a case manager, mm-hmm. and the analogy that I use is a case manager is like a nurse, mm-hmm. okay? So if you were to call a doctor, would you expect them to pull a doctor out of surgery to take your phone call? No, you would speak to a nurse. And in our office, a case manager serves the same purpose, is if somebody were to call about their case, case, you can't expect to get the lawyer out of court to answer the call. So the case manager is there to answer what questions they can answer. And if they don't know the answer, then they can talk to the attorney or schedule a time for the attorney to call back. But to your point, wanting every patient to know the name of their physical therapist, I want every client to know the name of their case manager. You better be on a first name basis with the client and with the case manager, because that's your first point of contact. And we are both in the customer service business. Our services are legal services, your services are physical therapy, but you have to keep in mind that this is a customer service business, and providing the best customer service is non-negotiable.
No, I agree. I teach my therapists this is a hotel business. When you come in, you have to have that type of respect. It's a 5-star hotel experience, because they can go to a lot of other providers, and we have to be the difference maker for them. And so we feel like our entry from the start to the finish is very important, from the billing to collections to scheduling to the therapy providers and to discharge. And then we're very fortunate that a lot of our patients that come in that have personal injuries come back to us for other problems, maybe non-personal injury related, but other things, because they trust what we've done for them. And so that's very rewarding for us.
One of the best compliments that you can be paid is by a referral or somebody that comes back. So in my business or in your business. Another thing that I think is very important are the customer reviews and Google reviews, right? It just shows that this is not just a one-off kind of thing. Here's a consistent pattern that this business is providing the customer service that people deserve.
Yeah, we're a 5-star hotel, because we've actually, one of our offices in Mokina, for example, we just had our 400th 5-star review over the last 2 years, so that's rewarding for us. And sometimes therapists are very shy about that, but patients do it on themselves. They said, I really like the difference in how we were treated, and it's rewarding. In fact, I think 45% of our patient population is referral from that patient. And so we very much are patient-centric in our approach to therapy. So what are some of the things you see from when people ask questions, when they do for a consult for an attorney? What are some of the misunderstandings or misconceptions that you see?
Well, one of the biggest ones is people don't understand that you don't have to pay a personal injury lawyer up front. You know it, I know it, we assume the whole world knows it, but they don't. So we only get paid, we only charge if we're able to make a recovery. So a big misconception that some people have is that they have to pay to hire a personal injury lawyer. Despite as many television advertisements they've had over the last 50 years, that message hasn't resonated. The second thing is that a lot of people don't understand how personal injury lawyers charge. We don't charge by the hour. So if you pick up the phone and you call your divorce lawyer, yeah, you're getting billed for it every time you call. In the personal injury practice, we charge a percentage of the recovery. And how is that good for the client? How is that good for the lawyer? Because we want to get the best recovery possible. The larger the recovery that we get for our client, because our attorney fee is based on a percentage of it, the better that we do. So our motivations are aligned. Client wants the best possible outcome. We want to get paid, and we want to get a good recovery and a good fee. And so both of them are aligned. And a lot of people don't understand that that's the root of what's called a contingency fee structure. What are some of the misconceptions that you have seen with people with regards to physical therapy?
When it relates to personal injury, they want to know about payment. So same thing. They're like, for us, I go, are you going to charge in the lawyer fees, and are you going to charge physical therapy fees? And we're very clear with them that we are on a lien basis, which means that we are going to wait for the settlement and for us to be paid. So we reassure the patient immediately, because when patients are worried about financials at the beginning, it just disrupts physical therapy completely. So we take the fear out of it immediately and let them know that we're here and we will not go after them if there's some issues that maybe for whatever reason it goes south. So we're very, very, very clear on that. So when they start therapy, their focus is just getting better in the recovery.
Describe how treating a personal injury case is different than if you were to take private health insurance with regards to deductibles and co-payments and things like that.
The treatment's always the same. We don't
Right.
develop but however, there's just we have a very solid authorization process. So any of the patients, if it's a commercial insurance, for example, they know exactly where they are on their authorization schedule and the payment schedules. And we're very flexible as a provider, that we have payment programs. We have 0% finances for a year. We want to help the patient, and on occasion we'll do pro bono because we feel like we want to help the community as well. So it's a very clear message we give to people, that here's what your deductible, here's what you owe, and if they have a problem financially because of the nature of the world we're in now, we give them plans and options to make sure they can get better.
And what a lot of people don't realize when they're being treated by a physical therapist or perhaps other doctors after a car accident is there are no deductibles, right? There are no copays. The bill is all pushed forward until the case is resolved. And that's helpful for a lot of clients. A lot of clients have difficulty paying $40 copays every time they go into physical therapy.
100% agree. And one of the other things we see on the other side is we see patients come to see us that has a very severe injury and they're not sure what to do, and the insurance companies wants to work with them directly, and they feel intimidated by them. And I'm like, so we try to ask them to at least talk and have a consult with an attorney. What kind of advice would you give somebody who's like on the bubble, like I might just talk to the insurance company? How do you convey your message to them to say where they want to go towards an attorney?
Yeah, I have to explain to them that the insurance company is not looking out for their interests. An insurance company is in the business of collecting premiums and not paying out claims, or paying out claims the smallest amount possible. So in my experience, and I've been doing this for over 30 years, even after paying a personal injury lawyer their percentage, my clients inevitably get more in their pocket than if they try to do it themselves without a lawyer. Insurance companies try to take advantage of people, and I'll be honest, if insurance companies dealt with people fairly and honestly, I would be out of a job. But the point is, the insurance company is not in the business to deal with people fairly and honestly. They're in the business, they're to make profit, to make money for the insurance company. So the more money they pay out in claims, the less profit that they make. So where I was talking about how my client's interest and my law firm's interest are aligned, right, with a contingency fee. The more I get from my client, the more the firm makes. With the insurance companies, the complete opposite. The more they pay out, the less money they make. Right? So where would the incentive be for an insurance company to offer any client who's been any individual who's been injured, offer them fair and reasonable compensation? And then the final point is, of course, the people that are talking to the insurance company don't have the experience that I have of 30 years and my team's experience to even know what the case is worth. Right. And so an insurance adjuster might say, oh, this is a very fair offer. I'm going to offer this to you now. And they may not realize that I'd be able to get them 2, 3, 4, 10 times as much of what that offer is. So I understand the reluctance of people. They're reluctant to talk to a personal injury lawyer. They trust the insurance company, whatever their motivations. But in my experience, trying to go alone is really not advisable at all.
Yeah, in a layman's standpoint, as a therapist, we let patients know that on average, the patient's settlements are about 38% higher with an attorney involved. Now, that's a generalization, but I think you can relate a little bit higher where a lot of attorneys or a lot of patients are referred to you through other attorneys because they know your settlements will be better. Can you talk about your processes that make you different from the other attorney groups?
Sure. Most people, although we do social media, I'm not on billboards, I'm not on buses, I'm not on radio. You don't see my face everywhere. So how do we get our clients? Well, a lot of our clients come from past clients and current clients, referrals, but we get a large percentage of our clients from other attorneys, mm-hmm, because they know that we handle personal injury cases, in my opinion, better than anyone, but we do a great job, especially compared to other personal injury firms, and that's reflective. A lawyer would not want to refer their client to my office unless they were very confident that my office was going to take care of their client. And so we've built our firm and our reputation by handling referrals from other attorneys. And it has proved a successful business model, so we must be doing something right, because these lawyers and clients keep coming back and returning and referring cases.
It's interesting you said that, because overnight, closing my eyes, looking after COVID, I've seen McCready Law everywhere now, including Indiana. Can you tell us a little bit about that success story of moving into this next level of care?
Sure. This year, 2024, is the 25th anniversary of me founding the firm.
Wonderful.
So it's by no means an overnight success. But when you do good work consistently, year after year, literally client by client by client, over 25 years, it really grows into something. And we're very proud of our reputation. And 25 years later, not only are we not still around, we're continuing to grow. And I think that's a testament to all the hard work that my whole team has put into it. Not just myself, but everybody in my firm.
It's great to hear.
Let's talk a little bit about beginning to end.
Okay.
So, and I'll touch on the parts that deal with the law, and then you touch on your parts. So someone gets in a car wreck and their neighbor says, hey, I've got this lawyer, Michael McCready's office. So we'll get a phone call at the office. My team will talk to the person to make sure that we can help them. I'll be honest, not everybody has a case. Not everybody has a case that we can take. So we will make sure that this is a case where we can help someone. We'll explain what the process is, and then they'll begin treatment and tell what happens when somebody comes to you after an accident.
Well, we usually see them, they've already probably seen a medical provider, somebody does the intake and does the medical diagnosis, and sometimes some of the workup has already started. And then we'll start doing musculoskeletal evaluation, and usually we see them in early intervention. So we do high frequency, low duration. All studies show that that's the best outcome. So in other words, we'll see somebody maybe 3 times a week for 4 weeks to try to get their soft tissue calmed down, get the acute pain out of there, and get them starting to get mobility, because they're very restricted and guarded. They have a lot of problems with their mobility. They can't go to work a lot of times or sit. So we get them into functional exercise programs, and we send documentation out to our providers within 24 to 48 hours. And usually we have from there, within 3 to 4 weeks, we usually send them back over to the medical provider to assess progress, see how they're doing with their medication intake, and if there's further diagnostics at that point. Because in the acute stages, you don't do an MRI immediately, because oftentimes physical therapy can resolve their symptoms. But when there's underlying higher pathology involved, then of course we need some help, and so they'll start doing some diagnostics with them, and then we will continue to co-treat based on the diagnosis and reconfirmation from the diagnostic testing.
And then while my client is treating with physical therapy, my team is in communication with my client. How are you doing? What medical treatment are you having? How's the physical therapy going? Are you going for physical therapy? What does the physical therapist say? What does the doctor say? What is your next course of treatment? Because we want to really make sure that we know the extent of the client's injuries. And so even though your team is treating the patient, my team is also communicating with the client. So at some point, my client, your patient, is done treating. Talk a little bit about the discharge process from your perspective.
To cover back what you are, what we do communicate with McCready Law's team as well when there's issues, and there's a lot of communication with his case managers as well. So everyone's in the know, and it's great because they're very easy to get back to us, and we really appreciate that, because sometimes there is a delay, and that lag can help to hurt the patient's progress. Once we get them to discharge, we give them a home exercise program, of course. We do offer them wellness in the future if they ever want to come back, and most of the time, I would say that most of the resolved cases that we have done very well, and a lot of them come back for other care, so that's an example of some of the things that we're doing. Our cases usually run between 12 and 15 visits. When somebody has something a little bit more involved, we might have to see them a little bit longer because their mobility is affecting their work. And so we've been pretty fortunate about the cases that we've seen with McCready because we've actually resolved them pretty quite quickly.
And then when the client is discharged, what my team will do is order all the medical records and bills, and then we'll be in touch with the insurance company to try to work on some kind of resolution of the case. The resolution of the case, despite what a lot of people think, is really based on the injuries. Okay, so insurance companies might have you believe that people are getting millions of dollars for tiny little injuries, and that's simply not the case. People who are injured in car accidents are certainly entitled to compensation, but the value of your case is based on your injuries, and if you're not injured very seriously, you'll have a case, but it'll be a small case. So the client will be discharged. We'll get all the records. We'll try to negotiate with the insurance companies. If we're unable to settle it, the next step is to file a lawsuit and go into litigation. The unfortunate part is the court systems are slow, and it will typically take 18 to 24 months on a smaller case. 24 to 36 months on a more complicated case if it goes to court. A lot of clients will ask us, what's going to happen in my case? Well, first you're going to go to the doctor and go through treatment, and then when you're released, here are the stages. But it's very difficult to give clients an exact estimate about when their case is going to be done.
Yeah, it's and for us as well. Once they're discharged, there's always a little bit of a lag, but in terms of when we know we're going to get scheduled payments. But I think it's really up to the court systems because once everything's settled up, we feel like we get compensated quickly from your law firm.
Right. So I know that you do a lot of conservative care after an injury. You had mentioned how if you do run into significant issues that you'll refer them out to another doctor. Let's say that you've treated a patient and they've had an MRI and it's pretty clear that it's an orthopedic consult. They go see an orthopedic doctor who recommends surgery and they go through the surgery. You treat them for physical therapy afterwards too, correct?
Yes, we do the post-op care as well.
Right.
So
how is that different than the conservative treatment at the outset of a case?
Well, one of the things we have to do is you have to follow the healing restraints of the surgery protocols. So if it's a lumbar fusion, then of course there's certain things you cannot be doing early on, or a rotator cuff injury where the shoulder's impaired. Sometimes you can't really do active motion of your shoulder for 6 weeks, but they have the patient in therapy very early, so you have to do passive range of motion and some other functional exercises to start getting moving. So it really depends on the protocol, but we like to see patients within 2 to 3 days post-surgery so we get them moving as quick as possible.
Yeah, and I found that the more work that the patient puts in after surgery, in the recovery process, the better the recovery is.
Yeah, we actually do pre-therapy before surgery. So, and very oftentimes the personal injury client, we've conditioned their body well enough so that even if they had surgery, their outcomes are better because their mobility is better, their aerobic capacity is better, their blood circulation is better. So all those factors play a role in the recovery, so they do recover faster based on what we did. So it wasn't like a waste of time. We really helped them to get ready for surgery.
I've heard that with professional athletes, that they're in such good shape that when they do have surgery on a part of their body, they can make a recovery faster than other people.
That's true, very true. And so we call them the industrial athletes, so they're the same, right?
So Jim, what do you think is the most difficult challenge that you face in what you do?
We don't have a problem with our patients once they come through the door. It's getting them through the door. So the challenge is patients have a lot of other choices, and so once they understand more about our brand and what we can do through word of mouth, through our internet marketing campaigns, or our branding process, then they're very happy with it. So we feel like the struggle is getting to know who we are. Once we have them in the door, we feel like we capture them for life. So that our biggest challenge is to let them know who we are. We're like the little brother in the streets, but we're better than our big brothers.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
From my perspective, the biggest challenge has been education. And educating the client from the beginning to the end, and we've taken a lot of steps to try to do that, is explain absolutely every step of the process. I've been doing this for 30 years, but this is my client's first and only time going through this. So we try to explain to every single client what the next step is going to be, what to expect, so forth and so on. So it's always a challenge. Different people learn in different manners. That's why we text people, we send out emails, we have videos. I mean, different people learn different ways. So our biggest challenge was just educating people about the legal process and what they're going to go through. And we're constantly refining that. We're always trying to teach our clients more and more. The better educated they are, the better outcome they're going to have.
Yeah, similar to what you just said, our biggest thing is our patient experience. The patient experience starts from the intake, goes all the way through into the discharge, and we do not stop at discharge and thank you for coming. We continue contacting them and giving them more information, similar to Mike said, regarding videos, instructions. We give them new information that we have in our system. Always welcome to come back for free screenings. So we want to keep them in the loop so that when they have a family member that really wants therapy, they know that we are taking care of them throughout the entire process.
Good point.
Yeah.
Some of the trends that I've noticed in law, and as it applies to medicine and physical therapy in particular, our insurance companies are looking at the medical bills and running them through supercomputers and saying, your bill is too high. And they will run their programs and say, you went to Lutheran General Emergency Room and that bill is not reasonable and customary. And my client is stuck with the bill. They can't just take this report from the insurance company and go to Lutheran General and say, the insurance company says your bill is too high, it's not reasonable and necessary. And the insurance companies are using these programs, where they get their data from, who knows.
Right.
But what they're doing is they're criticizing every single medical provider and what their charge is. And that has been a trend which has been very difficult to, you're not going to change the insurance company's mind, but what they're obviously trying to do is lower the value of the claim.
Right, I agree. And they're looking at the diagnostic code and what the typical treatment would be. But a soft tissue injury, when somebody hits you in a car that's over 3,000 pounds, is a different injury than somebody just has a soft tissue injury at home or something like that. I think one of our biggest challenges or noticeable differences that I see is, especially in personal injury, is I think because of COVID, there was a lot more interaction with attorneys via Zoom, even in the court systems. And so I feel, and Michael can talk about this more than I can, is a lot of these patients are being engaged without having to go into the office. I mean, they're afraid to come down. It's hard to come downtown, those type of things. And so I see like a lot of the interaction is done remotely, and I feel like that's changed over the last 3 or 4 years. Is that a correct assessment?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Listen, the world has changed.
Yeah.
It's changing every single day. And you either embrace technology or you're left in the, in the last century. And as a law firm, and we're trying to embrace technology. And physical therapy has been a certain way for a long time because it's effective. But there's always new modalities, and there's new durable medical equipment out there. Different things to try to help a patient get a better recovery.
That's why we provide in-house CEUs at our office. We bring people from all over the country to help to make sure my therapists are up to speed on everything that's out there.
Great.
Okay.
So there, as a physical therapy provider, there's a whole range of modalities and things that you can do, from holistic medicine to traditional medicine to Eastern medicine. How can a patient know what is going to be best for them?
Well, a lot of patients are very non-surgical. They're threatened by surgery, and we don't like surgery either, unless it's a last resort, because surgery does impair the mobility. Even in the best surgical outcome, you're still going to be 95% of what your efficiency was at best, after surgery. So we always explore that option, and sometimes there's no other option. So we do offer a lot of non-invasive procedures, of course, but one of the big things now is dry needling as an Eastern medicine approach that all of my therapists are dry needled certified. We do provide that in our CEUs, and that's been very effective as opposed to a hot pack and all the old traditional stuff that we do. And the patients are they like it because it's a big buzz, but it's also very effective. I've had it because I had shoulder surgery, so it's been very effective in my mobility, and it helps. It's very quick treatment. It helps reduce spasms, improves blood flow. There's so many good things we can do. So we do impact our patients through holistic approaches, just like that.
Yeah, I mean, whatever it takes to get the person back to the best way, the best position that they can be in,
I agree.
pre-injury.
I agree. I agree.
So I deal exclusively with injuries that were caused by someone else. You, of course, will deal with car wrecks and so forth and slip and falls, but you deal with people that are injured just in everyday activities. How is that any different?
Well, one of the things is patients are people that get hurt is because they're in a hurry and they're not careful. And so even from a geriatric patient, somebody who's a little bit older, where they're getting out of a chair,
Or they're walking with their cell phones.
right? They're just not paying attention. I've seen so many people that actually, I've seen literally injured fights for use of the phone. They walked right into fountains. It's unbelievable what I've seen. You see it on TV. It really happens. We see them in our clinic. But just not being careful. An elderly person would be somebody getting out of a chair, not paying attention to a chair. An older person would be somebody who's distracted by, technology. On technology when they're driving. That's a PI case, right? So you see that all the time. So we try to have patients slow down what they're doing and make sure that they're very cognizant of their surroundings. And so in therapy, however, when they have those issues, it's a lot of times it's balance disorders. And so we really, really work on balance in all phases of their ADL, their function. And I think that really helps reduce the risk of falling, et cetera.
That's a really good point, because we see that with quite a few of our clients, is that although they were in an accident and their back or neck or some other body part hurts, oftentimes doctors, miss the mild traumatic brain injury, right, or a concussion. And we try to ask proactively our clients, do you have dizziness? Do you have double vision? Do you have headaches that you're not used to? Do you have memory or cognitive issues? Because most doctors and you at physical therapy are treating the physical aspects of the muscular skeletal system, but a lot of times dizziness and those can be symptoms of a mild TBI.
I agree, and what we have seen, to his point, is that we've seen a lot of initially patients have whiplash injuries that have not resolved, and they have vision problems. They get up real quickly and they're dizzy, and so then we're all trained in vestibular treatment, so we can treat patients that have vestibular orders pretty effectively. And when it doesn't resolve, then there's a little bit more underlying conditions there. So I see more neurologists more involved in these cases because the concussion protocols are higher, and they were being missed, I think, a few years ago, and it's more up front and center now a little bit more. Agreed.
Yeah. It's great that it's being paid attention to, because oftentimes the diagnosis was missed, and I found it to be much more commonly diagnosed at this point. Another thing that fascinates me from a lawyer and the medicine standpoint is differentiating between the neck injury and a shoulder injury. Mm-hmm. And where is the pain coming from? Can you talk a little bit about that and the role of a physical therapist?
Sure. When they come in, their patients are their chart says, when they draw on the part, where's your pain? It's oftentimes the entire spine is already drawn out because they have a musculoskeletal injury. So their whole muscles are in spasm from their neck all the way down to their tailbone. When we are localizing, once it gets a little bit, tissue starts to resolve, and you can kind of localize where the actual injury is, whether it's neck or shoulder. So we have a very clear path towards orthopedic assessments, determining whether or not it's a shoulder or a neurological deficit of the neck. So neck mobility immobility does not necessarily mean it's a neck problem. It still could be a shoulder problem. So we're very thorough in our diagnostic assessments to determine whether or not it's a shoulder rotator cuff injury or cervicogenic, which means it could be either a spinal or disc involvement. So once we identify those things, then we can ship them over to our orthopedic group.
Another thing that's always fascinated me about what you do is muscle spasms and trigger points. And people don't understand that you can feel these. Can you describe what it's like to feel a muscle spasm or a trigger point?
I live that day sometimes when I overtrain, right? Yeah, we do see a lot of our patients that have what they call muscle tetany, where there's uncontrollable spasms going on their shoulder because of this injury. So their nervous is on fire, and so this is where actual our dry needling treatment is very effective for really calming the nervous system down, and that's an indication that there's a reduction of blood flow, a lot of spasm going on. So we do encourage our patients to hydrate as much as possible to reduce that, and we give them a lot of cueing for themselves, whether weight-bearing or sleeping positions, to reduce that type of tetany or muscle spasms that is occurring. It's a very common part of an injury in a car accident.
So how do you address what the insurance company propaganda has been, and a lot of people believe that soft tissue injuries, because they don't show up on x-rays, are not real, that the pain is not real? How do you address that?
Well, we have a pretty thorough assessment that we do. Of course, patients that come in here, I mean, you actually will feel the muscle spasms, first of all, and there's immobility. There's certain types of testing that we can do from an orthopedic standpoint that you can't cheat on. So we're very particular, and once you have certain tests that we do, whether it's a shoulder, neck, or back injury, that's consistent and reliable testing, then we know it's coming from an orthopedic standpoint. But again, some people could have an underlying cervical arthritis in their neck, but the condition is exacerbated because they had 3,000 pounds of force that hit them that caused all this spasm. So patients say, well, I already had kind of a neck curve. I go, but now you were set up for failure because this car that hit you from behind now set you into spasms.
Under the law, okay, even if you have pre-existing conditions, the law still says that you are entitled to compensation for the aggravation of a pre-existing condition. And a lot of people don't understand that. You know, you and I and other people who get to a certain age, our body just starts to get a little bit older. You know, our body is not what it used to be. We all have got natural degeneration. Although it might not cause pain, that degeneration is already there. But if you're in an accident and that accident aggravates it, makes it become symptomatic, you know, that's recoverable. So, you know, simply because someone has, you know, some prior pre-existing pain in a part of their body, if they're involved in an accident and it's aggravated, that still is a recovery.
You know, we educate our patients the same way because we know that that's one of the conditions they have, but I agree with that. You know, because they didn't have the problem for 20 years and all of a sudden now they can't move, so we know that's part of the injury.
How have the paperwork requirements and billing requirements that you have to go through in order to get paid impact your ability to treat your patients?
Well, I think part of that is this: we have a really good EMR system. So our electronic medical,
yeah, I was going to say,
our electronic medical records are phenomenal. And actually, for the therapist, it's user friendly. It's very important because I know some of the old providers still do paper, and it just doesn't fly in the courts. But we have a really good system that we use. That the coding is already put in place. A lot of the automation for our exercise program is already there. The therapists are writing their own notes, but it just makes their job a lot easier. If we're stuck doing dictation and not treating the patients, we're underserving the patients. So we have a really good EMR system that helps us to get through that next stage. And of course, everything is built right into our EMR system, goes right to our billers, and our billers send everything electronically to the insurance company. So it's a very smooth flowing process and makes it easy for us.
Yeah, it's interesting. Even within the law, you know, which is traditionally, you know, law books and paper and briefs, you know, everything has gone electronic. You know, we don't file any court papers. Everything's electronic. You know, in the old days, you know, at 4:45, I'd be running over to the Daily Center to make sure we got something filed at 5 o'clock. Everything had to be stamped, and now everything is electronic. So it saves a lot of trees. But it does require my team to learn and master a lot of electronic systems. Everything from Microsoft Word to our email program to our case management program to Adobe to whatever other programs we have, and there's always something new coming out. So trying to keep my team, like your team, bringing in experts for continuing education, constantly, you know, training our team on newest technology, with the goal of, helping our clients and getting a better recovery for them.
Wonderful. How does that, in the same term about technology, how are you using AI in your law firm?
We're pretty advanced with regards to AI. So we have built out a lot of internal artificial intelligence programs
Okay.
that do everything from summarize to generative AI, where it's actually analyzing a lot of the documents, the depositions, the medical records, all of those things, and helping our lawyers and our case managers and paralegals. It doesn't take the place of them whatsoever,
Right.
but we've been very active in utilizing and incorporating AI in our firm.
Great.
So the patients that you treat, you're treating the physical pain, the symptoms that they may have. As a lawyer, we have two concepts. It's physical pain and mental suffering, pain and suffering. How do you treat, or how do you see the patients with the mental and emotional suffering that they have to go through after an injury?
Oftentimes the physical condition is resolved after our treatment. The mental side stays along a little longer. So those are the things that we, obviously on our side of it, we try to encourage them and to be active. That's why we have a wellness program. After they're done with therapy, we get them into other exercise programs. We give them a lot of other things they can do when they're part of the recovery. But we've also, over the last 3 or 4 years, we've actually joined with a lot of psychology groups that understand pain management, and so we feel like that has been a great arm for us to offer our patients other services so they can kind of talk through, especially during the COVID, that started a lot more with us. We had patients that had a lot more depression, but injuries itself would cause depression as well, and so we have an arm that we use for our psychological patients that need help and assistance.
I've found that those two conditions go hand in hand. Is the physical pain leads to depression, the depression makes the pain worse, and then it's a constant spiral. Eventually it becomes chronic pain syndrome. And in those kind of situations, it's a dual approach. It's got to be physical, but there's also got to be a psychological component to it, because pain can control a person's life and absolutely ruin it through the depression and then the downward spiral.
It's a multidisciplinary approach to these type of patients. You have to have a team of people to help them, and I see it a lot more routinely than I've had in the last 5 years.
When it comes to emotional trauma that my clients go through, my certificate from law school is Michael McCready, attorney and counselor at law. So it's not just attorney. I mean, we are there to counsel our clients. Now, not offer psychological advice, but we have to explain to them and we have to listen to them. We have clients that call us that are in tremendous amounts of pain, and we're very patient and we listen and we try to be as supportive as possible and explain to them that it is their best interest to continue with the physical therapy even though they're in a tremendous amount of pain. So we're always there to try to provide that support for our clients, not just the legal support, but the whole emotional and psychological support that goes along with a holistic approach.
That's great. That's great news to hear.
Some of the most rewarding aspects of what I do is helping just ordinary people, every day. I went to law school to help people like my mom and dad or my neighbors. We don't represent corporations or insurance companies. And it's very fulfilling, personally and professionally, on an everyday basis, just to be there and help people. And help people at a time that they really need someone on their side. They need somebody to advocate for their interests. And so every day I come to work, whether it's a new client that we just sign up, or it was somebody that I did a trial for 25 years ago who reaches out and says, "Hey, Mike, how you doing? It's been a long time." That's what makes me and get up in the morning and encourages me every single day.
That's awesome. For our side, it's for me. It's like the name of my company is called ReLive, and so oftentimes patients come there where they're not living their life like they used to. So my joy and passion is when patients are able to relive their life, come back to their normal life, and restore their normal mobility and emotion and the things that they were doing before. So patients come in here with chronic conditions. And injuries such as severe auto accidents, and we're able to get them back to where they were and even a higher level. It's very rewarding for us, and that's what our goal is. And so we're very clear at the beginning of what their goals are before we start therapy. So one of our passions is to make sure that we get them to that level and beyond, because we don't want them to go backwards. We get them to the level they were, and we're a little bit farther than that, so that they don't have to ever come back to this injury.
One of the things I've always admired is that you have got your mission in one word, and it's the title of your business: ReLive.
That's all it is. That's all we do. It's true.
It's the most succinct but perfect word for what you do, and I've always respected that. That must have taken a lot of brainstorm one of these days, right? And it just hit you.
I woke up and said, I think I had pain in my knee or my hip, I think is what it was. And then I said, this is a great name for us, because I had another company years ago, and I said, this is a new world for me. This is going to be a special company, and I'm really looking forward to doing it, and I felt that ReLive was the right name for us. So
I get a lot of people that call my office about a potential case, and one thing that some people don't, and I appreciate that they're calling. I want them to call because we give free advice and free consultation. But what some people don't realize is, in order to make a recovery, for there to be a personal injury case, there has to be liability. And liability means that somebody did something wrong. Now, when you get rear-ended, it's pretty easy. That person wasn't paying attention and caused a rear-end accident. But there are lots of people that don't realize that you still need to prove that somebody did something wrong. Either they did or failed to do something that caused injuries. And so I encourage anyone with questions to call my office. I'd rather us tell them that there is no case than for them not to know there was a case. But a lot of people don't realize that you still need to prove liability in order to make a recovery. Just because you trip on your feet at someone's house doesn't mean their insurance company has to pay for it. No, there's no liability there.
I understand. I think the biggest problem with common medical issues is that people, especially in men, they kind of wait longer than they should. So it's more early, or the earlier intervention on any kind of pain, the best results. And so I had one patient, I'll never forget it. He was in his mid to late 70s, and he came to me, and I asked him how long he had his back problem. He said he had pain for 42 years, and his wife said it's time to go get it fixed. We got him better by about 50%. And I told him if he would have came in 20 years ago, I would have fixed him completely. So we want to make sure that we get people in as early as possible to give them the best outcome.
Here's a term that I'd love to hear your take on. So you treat workers' compensation patients, and the insurance company will send them for an IME. Mm-hmm. What's an IME, and what impact does that have on the treatment that you're able to give a patient?
Well, the independent medical examination, we see that happen.
Air quotes, independent.
Yeah, I know. It's not really independent. So we feel that the independent medical evaluation is a part of the process, of course, to make sure that whatever medical provisions that have happened so far, that there's somebody else checking to make sure there's an unbiased opinion, air quotes, with the treatment protocols. And generally speaking, oftentimes they are kind of more slanted towards the insurance, because that's who's writing them the check. So sometimes therapy will actually be denied based on an IME, and so then we rely on the attorneys and the physicians, and we look at this as the following. If there's a medical diagnosis, a physical therapy documentation that shows there's pathology, a doctor that confirms the diagnosis, an MRI confirmation, and attorneys in the case, then we stay in the treatment, because we want to help the patient irrespective of the IME.
There's we talked earlier about the role of insurance companies, and insurance companies trying to minimize the outcome of a claim. And in workers' comp, that's one of the techniques that they use, is to hire an independent doctor who writes a report, who basically says, patient's not injured, doesn't need physical therapy, doesn't need anything, and the insurance company denies the claim. And patients, our clients, don't understand. They're in a lot of pain, and they got hurt at work, and I can't have treatment because this guy who's never seen me before says I'm not injured. Well, yeah, that's why you need lawyers. That's why you need somebody to fight for you, because the insurance company is going to do what it takes to try to, cut you off of workers' comp and minimize the amount of money that you're going to get for your legitimate work injury.
The largest buildings in Chicago are insurance buildings, so you know who's making the money.
Let's see. So from my perspective as a lawyer, I'm not a doctor. I need to rely on the medical records generated by physical therapy or MRI or doctor or emergency room, and I need to rely on them being thorough and making sure that they cover everything. What do you see as your role with regards to documenting a case that happens to be involved in litigation?
One of the things that we do is, like, for our therapists, because I don't want them getting into the weeds, if you will, on what type of patient it is, I want them to document the same across the board. So I want thorough evaluation, whether it's a grandmother fell on a sidewalk and hurt her knee. I want to know when she got hurt, how she got hurt, and what she tripped on. Same as an accident, somebody got in an accident, we want to know when they got hurt, what time they got hit, and what kind of a medical treatment did they have afterwards. So we feel like our documentation is always consistent across the board. It's not just the consistency of the history, but it's also what we did, what our diagnostic testing were, whatever, and then whatever our plan of care is going to be. So we kind of really are very thorough, irrespective of the payer mix.
Listen, we've worked with doctors and physical therapists, and we get medical records in that aren't well documented, and it makes it much more difficult for us to represent our client. And we don't throw the doctor under the bus, but we have to explain to the client that, your doctor's medical records don't mention anything about your injury, or don't mention anything that your left knee is in pain. And because it's not in there, it's going to be really hard for us to make a recovery, regardless of what the truth is. And I know that your left knee was injured and it hurts today, but your doctor didn't document it, and as such, that's not going to be an area that we're going to be able to make a recovery on. So documentation is critical.
I agree 100%.
So we're talking about medical records and the importance of documentation, and sometimes patients need to be their own advocate. Sometimes they need to say, hey, doc, something's not right here. Would you consider X, Y, and Z? And one of the things that my team will do is, if a client says, hey, I've got numbness and tingling in my two, my pinky and my ring finger, you know what that means, I know what that means, and their doctor should know what that means, but maybe the doctor is conservative, or so we try to educate our clients as well, is that when you've got numbness and tingling in these two fingers, that's not a problem with your fingers, that's a problem with your neck. And it's not just a problem with your neck, it's a problem with a very specific part of your neck. And to find out what's going on with that numbness and tingling in these two fingers requires an MRI. So we'll talk to our clients and say, hey, just be polite, but talk to your doctor and say, I was reading on the internet, and would you consider sending me for an MRI? Point being is that sometimes patients need to be an advocate for themselves.
Well, they have WebMD out there, so they're all doctors already. So.
That's a different story, right?
Yeah, I actually see patients come already to therapy, and they already have their medical chart with them when they come in, which is great for us because we know exactly what's going on. Because oftentimes we don't know who the doctor is yet. We don't have all the information about the cases. So sometimes when they become their self-advocate, that helps our care.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's important. Just as we try to educate them about the legal process, I want the client to understand about the medical process. What are they doing? When a doctor says, I'm recommending an epidural steroid injection, well, I want them to know what that is, right? It's a needle, okay? And it's not just a little, pinprick. It's a sizable needle. If somebody is recommending, an arthroscopic knee scope or shoulder scope, I want my client to understand what that is. That they're going to be putting 3 holes in your knee, and the doctor's going to go in and clean it out and fix. So that educational portion from a medical standpoint as well as a legal standpoint is important.
Wow, it was awesome. It was wonderful to be here, and I've enjoyed this discussion with you and learned a lot more about what you do in your firm, and I would love to work with your cases, and I really appreciate the time here today.
Yeah, likewise. I always enjoy talking with smart, engaged people who care passionately about what they do, and the people, the patients, or the clients that we treat. So having someone that is really doing it for the right reasons is very refreshing. So it's been a pleasure.
Same here. Thank you. Thank you.